today, why don't we talk a little bit about maybe model players, like players where, if you're going to be a guitar player, or if you're going to double as a guitar player, or if you're going to double as a saxophone player,
Yeah.
you're going to play flute, or if you're going to play, these instruments, clarinet, or bass or drums. Who are some people that we should be listening to? Maybe on one side for sort of being functional and being able to actually work, and then on the other, and maybe stylistic considerations, and then on the other side, maybe some sort of like virtuoso kind of players where, that are just amazing players that maybe aren't the people that we want to base our conception on.
Right.
Probably won't work very much, but people that are valid nonetheless.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to start with drums?
Sure. Well, I think as a overarching theme with all of this, the main encouragement, I'm sure you agree, is to listen to everything. Have open ears, because you never know. Well, a lot of cats can try to have like the goal, I want to be the next, Pat Metheny, but life sets in as far as how you're going to pay rent, and while you're trying to push for your ultimate goal, you sometimes have to do certain things to keep life afloat.
Yeah.
And if all you're checking out is one or like a very streamlined type of approach, whether it's like the strictly artist thing, it can make things difficult to survive as a musician, so. But anyway, that's just sort of a side note.
No, I totally agree with that. And I don't know about you, but I have to really be deliberate about who I listen to, because my natural tendency is to want to listen to it's like for guitar, I want to listen to like Alan Holdsworth, Frank Gambale.
Yep.
I want to check out like the freak guitar players.
Yeah.
Those are the guys I want to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's all I do, then nobody wants, I can't work. Yeah. I mean, I can work in my own group.
Yeah.
But I can't work for anybody else.
Right.
So yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. But as far as drums go, I guess to start from you want to start from an artistry point or from a functionality?
Let's start with functional players.
Okay.
And then we can go off in the virtuoso thing if you for fun.
As far as cats that are working in the pop arena, I would say Lil John Roberts.
Okay.
Great drummer out of Atlanta. He's played with, just this past year, he's done Stevie Wonder, he did Janet Jackson, he's doing CeeLo Green right now. He and I played together with Layla. He's done Prince. He has literally the deepest resume of iconic pop artist that I could probably think of. Him, and then something about Questlove. Questlove has this thing where if you transcribe what he plays, it's easy. Like a beginner musician can easily transcribe what he does, but if you try to make it feel like he makes it feel,
yeah,
it's magical. And I've done it myself. Like I can say, oh, he's on eighth notes on the hi-hat, but it don't feel like it like he feels. And so he's someone you sort of have to study past, because if you're just a strictly analytical thinking from a I guess, analytical viewpoint, he'll say, "Oh, that's easy. I got that. I got that." But you sort of have to sit with how he plays, what he plays, the tones that he uses, because that projects a different type. A piccolo versus a 7/2 inch, or I'm sorry, a 7-inch snare is going to have a different vibe to it. The type of wood he uses, whether it's a brass snare or whether it's a maple snare, it's going to have a different vibe to it, and that also adds to what you're hearing. So sort of break him down in a deeper way, and then just like try to mimic. And I think in mimicking, that's when, well, same thing in jazz transcription, when you mimic an artist, that's when you also start to pick up the characteristics in, I think, a more organic way, in a deeper way, than just transcribing them like that. So those two would be some of the two drummers I would look into in pop. Man, in jazz, Herlin Riley.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just undeniable. Every musician, whether you're a drummer, horn player, piano player, bass player, the music's going to feel good when he's on the set. I haven't played with him before, but I've seen him live probably 4 or 5 times, and he left an impression where directly after the gig, I was calling on my friends and telling them I just saw Herlin Riley. And for me, few people do that. It's, even if they can play rings around me, it doesn't maybe leave an impression that way. But Herlin's one for jazz that I think he and group, because he has a way of reaching back. You hear the history in his playing,
yeah,
but you also hear like this forward consciousness of groove that's like very ahead of his time. He's just one of those cats to me. I'm trying. Do you want to cover more genres than that?
Well, I think that's good. I mean, I don't want to keep this relatively brief.
Yeah.
But I did want to comment on something that you were talking about, and that is the idea of being sort of 2-dimensional versus 3-dimensional. Because like music is more like it's more like a 3-dimensional and 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional. There's multi layers of music. And one thing I talk to my students about all the time, if you're going to transcribe something, or if you're going to learn something, whatever it is, you can't just be on the surface with it. If you're going to have an analytical approach and really be able to rip off all the essentials, then you can't just deal with simple things like, well, this is the rhythm that he's playing.
Absolutely.
These are the notes that are being played. And I think in a jazz context, this is well communicated by the fact that most jazz charts and jazz transcriptions, they don't have any accents, they don't have any slurs. All there is the notes and the rhythms. And now the reason for that is because the implication is that whoever's learning that transcription or that tune is going to reference the recording or all the essentials. And an approach that I teach my students, hey, you might as well use technology to help, is say, for instance, if they're playing a Charlie Parker transcription, I will say, okay, if you have an MP3 file, then it's easy to use an iOS device, or if you have a PC, you can use Windows Media Player. It's free. I mean, if you have a Mac computer, there's a program called Transcribe. It's free.
Yep.
You load the file in there, and you can slow down the recording, but keep the same pitch. And so my suggestion is when people are learning something, if it's outside of their technical ability to play the notes, I mean, yeah, you have to have some facility or familiarity with it before you can play with the recording. But playing with the recording as soon as possible, will enhance your ability to sort of pull in all of those other dimensions.
Yeah.
and actually, get them together and actually get all the juices out of what it is that you're listening to.
Yeah.
Then you carry all of that with you as you're speeding it up to get the tempo. Otherwise, what happens is you playing it, okay, I'm getting this together, that's cool. But then by the time you can actually play it at tempo, okay, now you're playing the thing at tempo, but you don't really have any of the essential components. So now you have to like relearn it.
Right.
Plus, you're not probably going to get all of this stuff. It's another reason why another approach that I talk to my students about is a good approach. And that is, if you have to slow things down or not, is to learn something by ear first.
Absolutely.
And then to write it down
Mm-hmm.
for purposes of analysis, harmonic, rhythmic analysis, and other things that are hard to sort of
call it.
Huh?
And you can recall it if you want to come back to a solo.
That's right.
That you transcribed 2 years ago.
That's right. There's so many aspects of music that are highly abstract. They're highly abstract, and until you write them down.
Mm-hmm.
If you can imagine listening to Beethoven without a score, all right, I'm listening to all this stuff, and it's beautiful, and I'm in the moment, and it's wonderful. But if I actually want to be able to use a particular technique that he's masterful at delivering,
right,
I wouldn't be able to have a strong enough memory of what it is unless I had something that I could look at. So the paper actually makes something less abstract in that sense. But the paper doesn't remove the necessity of listening to the recording and really, over and over and over and over to really pull out those things. One of the hardest things to do for a musician, and you said this when you were talking about Questlove, is to take something that is simple and give it life.
Yeah,
that's like one of the hardest things. And I think for musicians that are more trained and maybe have degrees and maybe have been like lifelong students of music, I think sometimes it's harder for us to take those simple things and give them life and really deliver that passion, into them, and which is a unique skill that a lot of pop musicians have, that a lot of academic musicians, for lack of a better phrase, don't have. They don't have that skill. They're not able to take something simple and give it all of that life and address all of those layers. Yeah. Communicate just as strongly as the notes on the page, more strongly. But, because the general public doesn't read music, and they're not thinking about what the thing looks like. How does it make me feel? Right. When I listen to it. So anyhow, that's a long tangent, but
no, I mean the I think part of what and I don't say this braggadociously. I see that as a gift that I've been given, but to be able to hear something and process how I'm feeling, and then replicate that feeling. So, for example, Sonny Rollins is probably one of the biggest influences on my musicianship, period. But what I got from him, I don't think I sound like Sonny. I think I have some Sonny isms on the saxophone. When I'm playing piano, when I'm playing drums, when I'm playing bass, there's a mentality that Sonny has, that his approach to music is what I think I've picked up. And so sometimes, you talked about the different dimensions of music. Well, sometimes it's, one of the things that's past the surface level of notes and rhythm is how it internally makes you feel. It's surprising, but a lot of musicians now, especially this YouTube craze, or the phase of technology, everyone's able to access everything so much. You're finding more and more people being able to play very technical at extremely early ages. Like I saw a 5-year-old blaze the bass. Like I mean, I mean stuff that I'm sad to say that I'm like working on right now. He was like blazing. But it's almost like people are becoming robots in a sense, to where the music doesn't feel. I'm not gonna say it doesn't feel good because that's subjective, but I think I will say from my subjective opinion, you don't feel anything deeper than you don't feel anything. Coltrane was able to do, but there was something deeper on a dimension that's like past notes. So I'm not going to say that, because other people take the road of, well, those cats, they play chops, but they don't feel good, as if chops can't feel good. No, chops can feel amazing.
Yeah.
But sometimes when the overall goal is to play fast and clean, you lose some of that. And then, on the other extreme, some cats just want to feel so much feeling and organicness, but their facility is low. And so.
Yeah, well, the way I say this is, there's a technique involved in every expression.
Yeah.
Okay, musical expression, verbal expression, communication, whatever it is. There is a technique that's associated with each. And to the extent that you don't have the technique necessary to express, whatever that is, then you're going to be lacking.
Yeah.
Your point about, young kids being able to play all this stuff. Well, I'm not surprised by that. I'm not surprised because technique is the easiest thing to develop. Okay, because it's a 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
It's very, do this to create this.
Yeah.
It's very one-dimensional. It's very easy to see how that. And the thing is that now I'm not belittling people that have chops or kids that are able to play well.
Right.
What I'm saying is that the reason that we have this explosion of that is because the pedagogy associated with teaching people how to play technique has developed astronomically.
Yeah.
But what you're also saying, and you're also implying, is that the pedagogy to teach how to get that emotion, music, has either waned or has not kept up with the technical facility.
Right.
And one dangerous thing about music is that music is there's so many inherently beautiful aspects of music. You think about common practice music, and you think about our expectation for 5/1, and how all the different ways to manipulate that and to use that as ways to create tension and then a more ultimate resolution.
Yep.
And then, all the rhythmic possibilities, and I mean, there's so much stuff, there's so much, I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? We're talking about technique. We're talking about.
You're talking about getting lost in the technical aspect of it, and the heart of it is.
Yeah. So there's so many inherently beautiful qualities about music that it's very easy to be distracted by the inherent beauty of the music.
Yeah.
But not be saying anything.
Yep.
So you hear these sonorities, you hear these chord qualities, you hear these, learned manipulations of harmony, and all that stuff is wonderful and it's beautiful, but it can become just another device, another technique empty of meaning, empty of emotion, if it's used without, sort of the accompanying connecting tissue, this, emotional content. Like, what are you saying? Like,
Right.
why should I listen to you play? What is the message? What's being communicated by what you're saying? Or is just your ability to play fast and to manipulate harmony and rhythm, or is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And I just don't, somebody like Coltrane, he's doing all that. He's manipulating, harmony, he's doing all that, but he's saying something.
I think that the goal has changed though, because what I'm noticing with this YouTube, and I'm not, we're not dogging YouTube or not dogging guys that are putting themselves out, because I think it's great to put yourself out. But if you're putting yourself out to make a musical artistic statement, or you putting yourself out to get famous, and at a certain point, and at the end, I do realize that for economy's sake, fame sort of equals more comfortable financial living. So I understand that I ain't dogging nobody for doing that. But I think if you're not saying anything and your goal is strictly to get out there and get famous, then the faster I can play, I can be known for the guy that plays this really fast, or the guy that can do this, or the guy that can do that. And having these surfacey goals sort of create depthless music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can go on a whole deep spiritual thing. I think with what you just said.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to resist the urge to do that. But all of that stuff matters. You can't simply. I think people think that you can just simply learn the skill, and then nothing else is communicated. Now, it's not just that, and I think that you're applying this. It's not just that nothing is being communicated by someone that just learns the technique.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's being communicated, but it just doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's vacuous. It's empty. Or it's fame seeking, which is also very vacuous and empty. Mm-hmm. Because once you get famous, if you have nothing to contribute, what did that do for you?
Right.
Everybody knows who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give you nothing, but hey,
you know me.
Meaningful to say, hey, you can see me now. Hey,
yeah, right.
Take me out. It just becomes that, and it's like, what's that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna laugh at that later today too. That's funny. Yeah.
Okay, so give us a few virtuoso drummers.
My favorite of all time is Vinny Colaiuta. For several, he's like a chameleon in a way, but he has his own sound, and he continues to stay progressive, which for some reason at certain ages the progression starts to go down for cats. But like for cats like him and like Herbie, like the older they get, the more it starts to keep going like that. But Vinny is he's someone that well, not to go back to our previous conversation, but everything he plays feel like I felt that. You know what I mean? It's like whoa. It pulls on me in a certain way. And then Buddy Rich would definitely be one, I think. Tons of cats. Marvin Smitty Smith. Virtuosos. Aaron Spears was probably one in the gospel chops thing that was sort of a staple, and since then cats like Calvin Rogers has taken over and made the gospel thing and now the next generation that comes after Calvin is playing his thing. So those are sort of some of the.
And I know you dig Dennis Chambers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I felt bad for not even mentioning that. Yeah, Dennis, Billy Cobham. I mean, I feel like there's so many to include in this conversation.
I know. Now, who do you think? What do you think of Virgil Donati?
Virgil, in my early days, I felt it was technically like, whoa. I went to a concert. I sat directly in front of a speaker, which is the worst thing I could have done because it was 30 seconds notes coming from his feet. So I felt everything from the subwoofer.
Right.
And it was, he plays, and from a scholastic level, it's I mean, ridiculously amazing. Playing these grooves in like 11/16 and 17/16 and these really, really odd signatures. Later, like recently, I've gotten back into him. And I don't know if it's because I've changed or because he's changed, but the stuff that I've been watching on YouTube lately that he's put out in the last 2 years has had me way back on his bus. I'm back on the Virgil Donati bus. I mean, for a while it got real computery.
Yeah.
Real.
I would agree with that assessment.
Yeah.
In general. He's got a couple things. There's a couple of those videos. Like, have you checked out his new CD? Well, I want to say it's like 2015 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any of his records. I just saw some YouTube clips, maybe from his.
I think that the YouTube video that you probably saw, if it's a more recent one, it's like a professionally done video.
Yeah.
It's from that record.
Okay.
And everything on that record, the guitar player on that record is Brett Garcett, who's like one of the sort of godfathers or one of the forefathers of the legato technique.
Yeah.
Like Alan Holdsworth is like, he's like that on the jazz side.
Yeah.
And Brett Garcett is like that on the rock side.
Got you.
Alan is like jazz fusion and Brett is more like a rock fusion.
Yeah.
Guy. And so he's on that record, and it's a heavy record, man. I mean, and I think that at least what I sensed on this record, more than I sensed on ones in the past, is that it seems like he has finally found a way to fuse all of that just ridiculous technique in musicianship into something that is more digestible.
Yeah.
But that in communicates on a more emotional level.
Yeah.
But that is still just as heavy, maybe more deep.
Yep.
It's just like he had something. It's just,
yeah.
It's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and yeah. You know, like I said, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes I don't know if it's because I've grown or because he's changed. You know, because certain people you did when you're younger, you go back and it's like, what was I thinking? And then certain people that I used to hate Sonny Rollins when I was like, nah, man, it's about Brecker. It's about, that's the thing. And then later in, you know, I feel like as musicianship grew for me, Sonny Rollins was a cat that I checked out. So I say that sometimes I don't know if it's because, you know, I've evolved or if they're evolving too. And then, you know, so I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, I mean, I always dug Virgil, but it wasn't like for the reasons that I like love Train.
Yeah.
Recently, and it's still probably never going to occupy that space, but I feel like he has done something that is getting him closer to something that I can appreciate.
Yep.
That's kind of how I feel. I mean, nobody touches Train. It's such a ridiculous standard that the Train set that I don't think it's possible for anybody ever to. I mean, he kind of ruined it for like everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, he kind of ruined it for everybody. I mean, but now understand, he had a few things working for him. The time period that he was that he played in
Yeah.
was a time period that was highly recorded and where jazz was popular and popular enough to sell enough records to afford to keep producing records for jazz. And a lot of people knew what he was playing with Miles and doing a lot of the things that he did just helped him to establish enough of a following so where he could continue doing what he was doing and people would follow him. And then therefore we have lots and lots of footage of him playing. So that's not going to be replicated, at least not in that idiom. Maybe in another one, but not in that. But then also his constantly searching, his spiritual search, constant spiritual search, and how he was able to intertwine that in his compositional technique, the way that he could take a simple cell and flush it out. Yeah. In his compositional techniques, and then also in his playing, and then on every note, his sound. Of course, even if you just look at his sound, that's right there. That's enough right there. But his ability to sort of infuse every note with some kind of deep spiritual direction and leading towards something, even when he's playing 30-second notes, even when it's just.
I think, and that's why I think that the thing to analyze, break down, and to give thought to is what was he thinking about?
Yeah.
Where was his head at? And so
that's right.
Even if you don't necessarily sound like him when you play,
that's right.
How can I come from that space?
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the thing that nobody wants to learn.
Right.
They'll acknowledge that it's there.
Yeah.
You have to. I mean, it hits you right in the face. Your whole body is resonating at his, the frequency of his saxophone. I don't know. It's just a really incredible experience listening to him. So I think anybody would acknowledge that, but almost nobody wants to really do what he did and have that kind of dedication, the amount of practicing, the spiritual search, the research, the going out east and studying Eastern religious music, to infusing microtonal, microtones within his music, the incorporation of multiphonics and of false fingering, which it was implying microtonal stuff, which means a specific thing from a spiritual context and the music that he was studying. Nobody wants to do it.
And it becomes intentional.
Yeah.
Because Cass you can mimic the microtones, and you can mimic all the stuff that you meant, the false fingers, the multiphonics. But when you intentionally do it, because I'm doing this because of this reason.
That's right.
It gets the whole, and so let's not get into the tangent.
You just said something, man. You just said something.
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm finding as I get older, is that everything has a place. There's a way to place just the right thing in the right context that communicates more profoundly than any 30-second note run, or any extended technique that I develop, or any superimposition of giant step substitution over, a turnaround, played at double time,
right.
Or any of that stuff can communicate. There's just a way to place just the right thing. And we find it in the way that we communicate as we get older, and we learn more about other people, more about what their expectations for conversation is, learning more about ourselves, learning more about the tradition and the history of communication, learning more about social issues, learning more about political issues and politics associated with your workplace, and how in certain terminology, connotations, and how all that stuff sort of mixes, and then to be able to place exactly the right statement, the right time, understanding all of that, Most musicians don't do that.
Mm-mm.
That's not what they're doing.
Mm-mm.
They're stuck. They're stuck just manipulating rules.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, but that's where I think you know, listening to somebody like Train, in understanding his search and how he was able to put all those things together in the way he was, that to me is the most profound way to study him.
Yep.
It's not just what did he play on a blues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or that. But
Right.
that ain't even the thing.
Right.
And on that note,
On that note, right.
and on that note,
Yeah.